Welcome back to Penalty Box Radio here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Justin Bradford, Glenn Blackwell, and it is time. It is time to discuss this hot topic, the hot mic of Tim Peel in the Predators versus Detroit Red Wings game. If you haven't heard it, it is all over Twitter. We cannot air it on these airways because it contains an expletive.
But we're a family-friendly show.
We are a family-friendly show. It basically catches him discussing, and apparently Matt Duchene earlier on these airwaves on 1025 The Game said that he was actually talking to the Predators bench and saying that he wanted to call a penalty on Nashville early, and as a makeup call, basically. So that's the gist of the situation. Tim Peel it was stated that he will not be doing any more NHL games this season. He was also set to retire at the end of the season. So it brings into question the whole, are they actually going to address this issue, or was this just taking care of one guy making him the scapegoat? Glenn, you're up.
I mean, it brings up so many things for me. It brings up so many things. I have to question, if he wasn't already set to retire, would this have been handled the same? But we'll never know that. Also brings up what you said. Is this going to be addressed, or is this just their way of addressing, saying, oh, we're going to take away the rest of the games for his season, and then that's it? Also, it brings up the fact that most all of us know, and I know this because I saw it on Twitter all night and all day. Most everybody has said, well, we know that there's always makeup calls. I mean, and then Matt Duchene saying on these airwaves 1025 this morning, saying that he was saying that to their bench. It's not a secret, right? Like, he wasn't even trying to hide that. Now, when he said he was saying it to their bench, I don't know if he was talking to them, because he did say against Nashville, but I feel like I interpreted that as he was speaking it to the other linesman right in front of the Nashville bench, making it no secret at all. Like, this is just normal conversation. This normally happens in games, and the players are supposed to just be able to shrug it off. That in and of itself is a huge problem for me, because that shows me that there's proof that there's emotion that comes with managing these games when it's supposed to be following a rule book. They're supposed to be enforcing a rule book from the NHL. But the fact that everyone always says, well, we know this always happens, that's just become part of the game. And if you truly, truly are the NHL and you truly want to grow this game, how can you expect to grow that if there is a fan who's watching their first or second game ever, and they saw that game last night and they heard that, and they see these conversations, they hear these conversations happening? Well, we all know makeup calls exist, and they're brand new to the game, and they're like, what? So I shouldn't really believe the refs when they call these plays? Like, what? That would leave any fan probably with a bad taste in their mouth, to be honest. And so that's problematic for me, because if you do say that you want to grow this sport, you want to grow the National Hockey League, I think that's a very, very poor representation of managing a game. So it's frustrating. I know it's frustrating. I was one of those people that was not at the game, and I watched it on TV, and I thought to myself, did I hear that right? So I backed it up, and I heard it right. And I was just thinking, and then all of a sudden, before I could even get my thoughts gathered, it blew up. And so, I mean, like I said, we won't get any answers to my first question of, would this have been handled the same had he not been retiring? Because everyone knows Tim Peel's name. It was interesting to see how many people across the league were like, oh, well, shouldn't be surprised, coming from him. So Justin, it just brings up a lot. So what are your thoughts?
It really does. And you hit on a lot of those topics. And for me, the way I look at this is there's a reason why two segments of Twitter responded the way they did. One segment was responding with, this is absurd. This is absolutely, I can't, I believe that, I believe it happens, but I can't believe that he would say this and get caught doing another one. And usually everyone knows that makeup calls happen. That is not a shocker or a surprise statement to anyone. The surprise to me is so many people that are okay with that and saying that, well, that's just part of the game. That's the excuse. Using "it's just part of the game" as a reason for any sport is the most lazy excuse. One of the most lazy excuses I can think of, to say, well, that's part of the game, it's not going to change. Games change all the time. Games evolve all the time. So why can't hockey? Why can't hockey culture change and be better? Why are we just going to be like that? Well, the integrity of the sport's okay, even though this thing happened. I'm not one of those conspiracy theorists that thinks that Tim P was betting on anything. No, he was saying something that is said all the time by officials to other officials, to other guys on the ice, and things like that, that makeup calls happen. But makeup calls don't need to happen. Call the game fairly. It's about the integrity. And one of the reasons why I think the NHL did what they did is because sports betting has gotten a lot bigger, and they're all in on sports betting. You have to have a game that has integrity if you're going to allow people to bet on it as well. But it's not even about the betting for me, because I'm not a bettor, even though I'm trying to learn more so I can understand and talk about it. But it's about the integrity and growth of the game, like you said, Glenn. And if we're just going to accept a poor product and accept that a product can be poor like that, then how's the game going to grow and get better? Just because something's happened the same way for decades does not mean it can't change. And it doesn't mean that it should be okay either. There are so many times in history I can revert to, and people are like, well, yeah, come on, that's a stretch. But it's a similar analogy when you look at it, because it means you're saying you're not open to evolving a game to make it better. The 2-line pass used to be a thing in the NHL. There didn't always used to be a trapezoid. Goaltending gear changes all the time too. There's so many different things that's changed to evolve the game, whether it's good or it's bad. They test things out. There's been so many different ways they take face-offs. How offside is determined. We've seen that, just if your foot can be in the air or not. The game is getting faster and faster and faster, and the NHL officiating is not. It's not keeping up. And we've seen this so many different times, whether it's with goaltender interference or the offside rule, things like that, that it can't keep up with certain aspects of the game. And if folks can't keep up, then they need to be gone. This game is built upon, they're supposed to be the absolute best in the business, and there's got to be others out there that can absolutely do it right. The biggest part to me is about communication. Communicating with the players on the ice and with the coaches, and have an open communication. And I'm sure there are going to be plenty of players and coaches that are fine with makeup calls as well. Like, well, yeah, I mean, if they're going to make a mistake, they're going to give us one back. But it shouldn't have to be that way. That's not integrity in the game. That call was so weak against Victor Arvidsson. How many weak calls have we seen made in the NHL? And then when it gets to the playoffs, the whistles are swallowed. It's overtime, not calling anything. A guy could be getting murdered on the ice. And nothing's happening. And he's getting pounded with his head into the ice. Yeah. And nothing's getting called. Whereas you have a guy that goes woo and flops, and all of a sudden it's called. That's about the integrity of the game. We say playoff hockey is the best hockey. Well, if that's the established way they're going to call the game, then call it that way. I want consistency in officiating. I want to have integrity so the game gets better, so we know what to expect. If the officials communicate to the players the way they're going to call the game, and they do it right off the bat, they're establishing the precedent right there. That's what you need to do. If you want to manage the game, then you set the precedent instead of making up for it in the third period because you made a mistake and you're like, oops, probably should have called a little bit more, so I'm going to make up for it in this period right here. No, that's not integrity. You're managing the game, and you're letting it get out of hand because you let it get out of hand. Not anybody else's fault, because the players are playing the game the way that you're calling the game. They adjust. And I've talked to plenty of players on that about adjusting to the way a game is being called. They do. So you don't have to do a makeup call. You call it when it's a penalty, and you don't call it when it's not. That to me right there is I know it's the simple way to look at it right there, but the NHL has got to investigate this more and actually come out and be truthful with it too, of holding a higher standard. Because yeah, he's gone and ends up he's retiring, and people are like, well, there it's gone now again. Nothing's going to come of it as well. Prove to fans and prove to people that you actually want to make the game better, and that you want them to respect the game. You want officials, you want players, you want them to respect the game. There's been so many times when officials have made mistakes, and I'm sure they got reprimanded in private, but there's got to be ways to address officiating mistakes without embarrassing the official all the time, but also address it as a league and say, we got to be better at this. This is what happened here. We're going to be better, and it's been corrected. Just address it. You've got to address the elephant in the room, the monkey in the closet. You've got to address those situations for the game to get better, for everybody to have a clear understanding to respect it. Because with technology nowadays and how we can slow things down so much, we can nitpick all we want. I know officials, they're human. They're going to make mistakes and everything too. But communicate that with coaches. Say, hey, I made a mistake there. I saw this is what happened, and I'm going to be better, but no makeup calls. I'm sorry. This is just the way the game's played. Everyone comes in with an understanding that things are subjective. That's sports. When you don't have machines that are operating it, that sports are there that's subjective. But a makeup call is managing the game that I don't want to see. I don't need it to be even. Some teams are going to take 5 more penalties than the other team. That's fair because they're playing dirtier and not following the rules. If you don't follow the rules, you shouldn't be rewarded with makeup calls to make it more even. That's integrity of the game. Communicate. We see it in lower leagues that officials would communicate with beer league players or youth players, high school players. Communicate with the players on what the expectations are and what you're going to call and how you're going to call it. Communication's key. Talk to each other. That's what I want to see as it continues to grow.
Yep. It is all, like you said, it's all about integrity. I mean, they have fans who want to know that they're watching a fair game. They've got, like you mentioned, gambling sponsors, and this was their opportunity, to be that league of integrity, to hold those people accountable. But you don't want it just to stop, because it became very, very apparent that this is not just an incident with Tim Peel. This is an incident, not even an incident. I mean, this is just a nightly occurrence that just happens in front of players' benches, and they're supposed to just be okay with it. When, like you said, I mean, if they've played well the whole game and the other team has made stupid, careless mistakes, why should that other team have to pay for that? Just because they want it to be even. We're not watching this to have an even game. We're watching to have a fair game to watch.
Fair.
And if your team goes under 5 penalties, then that's what happens to your team. Okay, that's moving right along, Yeah. So it's just, you can only hope that this starts a much larger conversation.
Hope.
Because you can hope. That's our hope. But yeah, I did see a lot of people say it was just blown out of proportion, because this is just what we've all come to expect. And I hate that it's gotten to a point where people are saying that we have to come to accept this. And I also think it's horribly bold to go over and say that in front of that Nashville Predators bench.
Right.
I really do. Like, it's so frustrating to me. If I were an NHL player and he was saying that in front of my own bench, saying I've been wanting to call this on Nashville.
I do not want to accept mediocrity. Right there. I'm not going to accept it when it's professional, supposed to be the best league in the world. That's the thing. They talk about it being the best league in the world, then be the best league in the world. Do not accept mediocrity.